Hey guys, I just filmed a video of me talking about all the books that I got when I went to the Philippines, and I said in the end of the video that I wanted to talk more. So here's me talking more because I've been thinking a lot today and I have no one to talk to, so might as well talk to you guys. Had a conversation today with my parents, and by parents I mean my uncle and my mom. And I was thinking a lot about forgiveness because it is something that I always struggle with, but it's more so a very internal struggle for me. I don't know. I'm like, to other people, I might come across as forgiving, but to me, I feel like when I forgive someone, it's just like for them to feel better about themselves, but I don't, like, in my heart, I don't actually forgive them, or I might still hold a grudge, and I will keep that grudge with me until they do something again, and then I won't tell them that they did something again in fear of them, beating themselves up about it, but I'll keep it in, and then once they, like, intentionally hurt me, then I'll just burst out the seams, either at them, or I will just shut them away and never talk to them again, and they will never know what they did to me, and I'm just like this mystery to them. Hi, it's editing me. I just had a conversation with my friend. I just wanted to add on to, like, what I was trying to say here about myself. I feel like I'm not a very forgiving person to other people, like, internally, is because I'm not very forgiving of myself as well, because for a lot of my life, I've been kind of made to be the culprit of a lot of problems that I didn't cause. It's more so to do with, like, family stuff, but yeah, so it's like I don't forgive myself for those problems, and, like, how I wasn't able to assess them even though I was just a kid. So sometimes that translates into my relationships with other people. But yeah, I had a conversation with my best friend today. He kind of gave me a reality check about, like, stop over explaining yourself on things. Like, you're allowed to explain yourself, which is why I'm making these videos right now out of nowhere. But yeah, I don't need to feel guilty for admitting the bad parts about me, because I feel like confronting them is one step to being a better person. I don't know. I mean, it isn't my end goal in life to be a good person, because that's always going to be up for debate for everyone. I mean, we can get into a conversation about, like, what is deemed as a good person or a bad person, whatever, and I don't, you know, I can be a decent person. I would like to be a decent person at the end of the day, but, like, I don't know. I don't want to get too philosophical about this, but anyway, back to my rant about forgiveness, which I know is very bad. I'm very much working on it, and that's why I'm making this video as well, because I wanted to talk about it, because being that type of person who does that to themselves it's very tiring, and it's very much like, how are you gonna mature, you know what I mean? And speaking of maturation, I mentioned in the book video that I just made, I don't know if I'm gonna upload that first or this, so sorry if I get it mixed up or whatever, but I mentioned that the majority of books that I have on my bookshelves that I read for the majority of my life before I entered my 20s was YA books, and to this day I still love young adult fiction novels. Call me corny, call me basic, but I loved very much, very deeply, John Green books, and a lot of people say that he doesn't know how to write women, and I concur to that very much. Not concur, I disagree with that very much, because his book Paper Towns, I think Looking for Alaska is his book that aged the best out of the rest of his books. I think my least favorite John Green book is, like, The Fault in Our Stars and stuff, especially because, like, the Anne Frank museum scene, like, I really can't get past that, but also because I haven't experienced that type of those things that those characters went through in The Fault in Our Stars. Anyway, but Looking for Alaska and Paper Towns deal with breaking down the whole, like, manic pixie dream girl trope. And I even, like, I've mentioned this to my friends before, but when I watched Arcane and how Jinx is supposed to be this, like, manic pixie, like, she has all the ingredients to be a manic pixie dream girl, but they wrote her in a way where she beats all of those stereotypes and becomes just a girl, and what it means to be a young woman who was faced with all the things that she was faced with. I will link those videos, that video essay about how Arcane writes women, because it's just one of the best video essays that I've read so far about, like, media interpretations, whatever. But yeah, going back to Looking for Alaska by John Green, one of the quotes that is famous from that book is when Alaska quotes one of these authors' last words. No, not last words. One of his, like, most memorable quotes from this author's book. I forgot what the actual author's name was. And she says, "How do we get out of this labyrinth of suffering?" And towards the end of the book, spoilers, the main character, Miles, answers that question. How do we get out of this labyrinth of suffering? We get out of this labyrinth of suffering by forgiveness. And when I read that when I was 16, 17, I was like, fucking bullshit, okay? Bullshit. What the fuck? Like, I hate Miles. I hate everything that happened in this book. Alaska deserved better. What the fuck? And then I watched the show, and I thought the same things. Oh my god, I hate forgiveness. Oh my god, what the hell? And I think it's a lot to do with the theme of grief in life. I feel like grief is such a topic, a feeling, and a phenomenon that people kind of tiptoe over, and they don't. Sorry, lights out. The ghost in my room said, bye, no. Yeah, people kind of just tiptoe around that, and why? Like, why do people do that? Like, whenever someone talks about grief, like, I'm their number 1 and 2 in line, because it's such a big thing, and everyone goes through it, whether you're grieving someone who passed away, you're grieving someone who's alive. I think it hurts equally, and it's so strong. Like, dealing with friendship breakups is a way of mourning, it's a way of grief. There's different levels to it, whatever. I don't believe in, like, the whole, like, stages of grief thing, because it's just so crazy, and not everyone goes through those 5 steps. I even wrote a poem about that once called The Theater of Grief, and it's like, oh, I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting way into this. I'm not apologizing for that. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, forgiveness and grief, they're kind of like fire and water in some way. I'm not trying to be, like, very introspective and, like, I'm just kind of ranting and blabbering on here. I'm not trying to reach to a very smart conclusion here. I don't know if I'm gonna reach a conclusion at all. I've been talking for 6 minutes already, and I barely just begun my thought process on grief and forgiveness. But yeah, like, I don't know. I find it very hard to be a forgiving person when I'm also a person in mourning a lot of the time. I think once you, like, have entered the state of grief, it's hard to, like, not be in that. It's not really a choice sometimes, and it's just so, it's annoying. So it's like, how am I supposed to forgive or get out of this labyrinth of suffering, as this fuck-ass YA fucking author says, if I can't even forgive the very concept of grief? Like, why do we go through these things? And I know the logical answer and, like, the right way to think about grief is that, you know, it's just love, persevering, all of this, blah, 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 blah. And I know Richard Seikin would disagree with that. I think he has very strong opinions on grief and its correlation with love. And I know I don't agree with it. I remember seeing on Twitter once, and he was very, like, adamant on, like, grief is not love, persevering. What the fuck? That person is dead. They're not capable of feeling love anymore. Like, that's just on you now. You're just being Delulu or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but that's what I kind of remember from what he said. So sorry if I'm misspeaking on whatever Richard Seikin is saying, but I don't agree with a lot of the things he says. I used to, but then I kind of grew up. But yeah, so anyway, I don't know. I think now I'm still learning to be a very forgiving person, but at the same time I still find myself remembering like the people that I've lost in my life, a person that I'm grieving every single day of my life. All of the time was me when I was younger, and my late uncle who passed away in 2021. When I lost him, it was a very, very, very tragic moment in my life. It was very traumatic. It was very there's no words that can describe the pain that 18-year-old me was going through at that time, because I never got to say goodbye to him. The last time I saw him was when I was 9 years old, and he was the person who primarily took care of me during my childhood years, growing up in the Philippines. And I don't forgive myself a lot for not being able to see him, and it wasn't my fault that I wasn't able to see him. It was no one's fault that I wasn't able to see him. There were just circumstances that had to amputate us essentially from one another, and there are lots of things that I regret. Why did I ask him all these things? He's the one who introduced me to the world of music, and why I want to be a music journalist when I graduate college. And it sucks that I won't be able to tell him about it, to ask him about it. The one person that kind of gave me the building blocks, the tools to expand on what I love, my passions and my hobbies. And so, I forgive it all as it comes back to me, whatever. But it's hard. Like, sometimes I kind of take it, like, I forgive it for one day, and the next day I'm like, why did I do that? I take it back. And when it comes to, like, people apologizing, and then you're given the option to forgive, I find it hard sometimes to kind of not overthink about whether or not I'm forgiving someone. It's very much like when I'm put in the position where someone apologizes to me, and I really have to think about whether I forgive them or not. I don't know if that makes me a bad person. I probably am, but sometimes I do forgive them, and I think more deeply about how much they hurt me, or I think too much about why they would do that, what led them to do that, how can I empathize with them in the way that they acted towards me, and how do I separate my feelings for this, blah, 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 like how it affected me and all. And then I just sometimes end up regretting forgiving them, but I can't just be like, hey, I take back the fact that I forgave you, because that's also a very hurtful thing. That's something that maybe they can't forgive me for, or they have, maybe they want to forgive me for that, or whatever. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, it's just very, very difficult. One of the books that I bought in the Philippines was by Deloy Concepcion. It's his things you wanted to say but never did. It's like part of his project thing, and there's kind of like lots of ethical not lots of, but there's like an ethical dilemma that I keep thinking about with this project in particular, because he's an amazing photographer, don't get me wrong, but his project is basically you submit anonymous confessions, and then he puts those confessions onto photos, like this one, for example. He publishes them, whatever, and it's like, is he profiting off of these people's traumas? Are these people, like, obviously these are anonymous confessions, so there's no way for them to be compensated for their words, so it's like, are these his words now then? Because it's like, I don't know how that works. What are your thoughts on it? But I'd love to know. I'd love to be part of that conversation. But anyway, but I'm not saying what he's doing is bad, because obviously I have his book, and I'm very intrigued by it. I keep up with this stuff, whatever. But, one of the questions in this book or not really questions, more prompts. It says, FOMO, also known as the fear of missing out, can almost always be solved by going out and getting some froyo, also known as frozen yogurt. What kind of fear of missing out do you suffer from, and which flavor of froyo would help get rid of it? Fear of missing out, I dealt with that a lot during my years of rest and relaxation, per se, because from the ages of 17 all the way up to 21, I was basically in solitary confinement in my room. There's lots of lore to it. If you are a good friend of mine, you probably have heard that story multiple times, but basically that period of my life was just spent me being stuck in my room. The pandemic had to do with it, but it was a lot more than that I won't get into in this video. Maybe another time when I'm more, when I kind of like, if I know that I can write about it very fluently, because every time I have tried to write about it, it's very staggered. So I feel like that's how my thought process on what happened to me in those periods still is. But anyway, during that time, I was literally that main character from that Otessa Moshfegh book, and it was torturous because a lot of people, especially Gen Zs, like, being alone is a very scary thing, and you, like, the topic of forgiveness is something that will cross your mind when you are in solitude, because you start to think about every interaction you've ever had before entering the state of solitude, and then inevitably you think about all the bad things that people have done to you and vice versa, and like, obviously, do you forgive them or do you not? And then it starts to become black and white, and then it doesn't. It becomes colorful, and then there's lots of angry colors, and then warm colors, and then sad colors, and the music comes in, all those things. And during that time, yeah, I had FOMO. The fuck? FOMO was my middle name. Faye FOMO Liego. It even, like, it works. And even now I go through FOMO, but it's like normal FOMO. Because FOMO I was feeling between the ages of 17 to like 2021 was, oh my god, all of my friends graduated. I'm still here. Oh my god, all my friends are hanging out in the mall, and I'm here in my house. Oh my god, my friends are actually doing things with their lives. Oh my god, my friends are coming of age. Oh my god, my friends are doing this and this and this. And then I didn't have friends. And then I was like, oh wow, I'm fearful, and I am missing, literally, and I am missing out. And it's just like, did I become the fear of missing out? I think I just became a word or something. I don't know. But how do I deal with that? I don't know. I don't even know how I am here. How I'm still here. I think very obvious answer for that is music and writing, a lot of writing, and just kind of learning to like, to just at least like to be alone. But yeah, right now I like being alone a lot. I think if I'm put if I was put in that situation again where I had to I was forced to be in solitude for all those years, I would know how to deal with that circumstance better. And I think in solitude I become more forgiving, not only myself but of others, especially now that I've come out of solitude, and now I'm just kind of slowly crawling back in by choice this time. And yeah, I don't know, like, how did I get over that? I think just by learning to be alone and then accepting that. That's where I was getting at. Acceptance. There's a difference between forgiveness and acceptance, and yeah, I think that end of the video. Bye. I think there's a difference between acceptance and forgiveness. I don't know how to explain it, but there just is. I feel like there's lots of inferences that can be made about that, but acceptance is more so just like, okay, I accept that this is happening to me. How do I move on now? How do I deal with this now? And then there's forgiveness, whereas, okay, I feel hurt by this, and I don't know if I will kind of give this thing or this person leeway to also help them move on, or like, give them that confirmation that this negative energy can be turned into something neutral or positive. Does that make sense? I don't know, but yeah. My favorite froyo that would help me get rid of FOMO. Okay, the FOMO I'm feeling now is like not going to the music scene, like not visiting the music scene, not visiting my friends, hanging out with my friends, going to beautiful independently owned bookstores, because there's no such thing as that here where I live. I live in a very suburban town, literally in the middle of nowhere, And there's no such thing as independent bookstores. There's no, like, whatever. There's just one grocery store and one mall and Amazon Prime if you want your books and your shit and your interests in possession. Anyway, yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. Like, my fear of missing out is, like, just being in the metropolitan scene and the music scene and, like, seeing all these different people of different walks of life and just kind of like not looking at the mirror for once and just like using my eyes and ears, using all of my senses to see the world, I guess. So that's what I'm missing out on right now because I'm kind of just back into that solitude, but soon I won't be, so I'll be fine, I guess. I think I'm just taking a break from that because it also is overwhelming if you spent like 5 years of your life in complete solitude and then you get whack in the in freaking Cubao, Metro Manila. Like, it's a lot to take in. So anyway, what froyo would I get? Probably just plain like soy milk yogurt or maybe berry. Not really a big yogurt. Oh wait, no, banana yogurt. Yeah, banana yogurt. I love banana. Cold banana milkshake things. And if that was a yogurt, I would eat it. Anyway, yeah, that was my rant. I don't know where I was going with this. I don't know if I will post this. But yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Bye.